As a young, ever-changing, and evolving generation, we have given up traditions that no longer represent our view of the modern world. We have accepted that although these practices have worked for a long time, they are no longer viable, and the world is ready for a change. We have reshaped social systems, grown from prejudice, and left our all-or-nothing worldviews behind. And yet, the glue that once held these broken systems together has not grown alongside us. Religion and faith are essential parts of the human experience and give millions of people hope and trust in mankind and the planet itself. It's understandable to have aversion to this statement. It's okay if I lost you there and it made you feel uncomfort, because that stigma is so prominent in our culture today. Through the media, politics, and even at times through the people around us in the community, religion is depicted as strict, exclusive, and extremely traditional. This perception and reality at times has diminished the love and hope that faith should spread. So to continue, as a young, evolving generation, we must keep our religious communities intact by reshaping them to fit our values, our morals, and our lifestyle. In 2020, it was estimated that 70% of the US population identify with a particular faith. Within our community of Lincoln County, Sunday service is usually attended by a majority above age 40 and below age 12. That gap there in the middle is evidence of the effects that hatred and cruelty in politics have had on millennials and Generation Z. From anti-abortion protests to homophobic pictures and propaganda, the Bible has been used as a hateful and demeaning way to put people down for simply listening to their bodies. So just like we reshaped our school systems to be welcoming and accommodating of all gender identities, sexualities, and ethnicities, we have to reshape our religious communities in the same way. The importance of religion and faith lies in its ability to comfort unspoken troubles and answer questions that weigh on our conscience. Before technology and modern science, young people were pulled in by religious narratives and enthralled by the mystical. Today, religion should be about questioning unknowns and finding peace with oneself. A study done at Stanford University found that frequent attendance and practices of religious faith resulted in higher levels of personal well-being and quality of life. Religious communities could benefit from changes that better adapt them to modern ideologies and promote understanding and love over tradition and exclusion. My connection to my faith has changed throughout the years. I grew up Christian. I went to church every Sunday and met some of my closest friends there. Around age 12, I stopped going. I would go occasionally, but I really wasn't that invested. I felt social pressure at school to suppress my faith and appear almost indifferent to it, as I'm sure many of you have. After that, I went through what a lot of you probably know as an emo phase. Sad music, dark clothes, the whole 9 yards. And some may say this was just a phase, but it felt different to me. I knew that I could go back to my faith at any time, and they would welcome me with open arms. But I wasn't sure how I felt anymore, and I was questioning Christianity and faith itself. Just after I entered high school, our church hired a new priest, and my life completely changed. Our church had always been open and accepting to everyone, but when we hired a female lesbian priest, the environment blossomed. I was able to write and play my music at church, advocate for the young people around me, and volunteer with the community to spread the love that we had to share. Our church reformed my religious faith. Worshiping became understanding and connecting. Conformity became exploration and intention. We interpreted the Bible differently and found the love within it rather than the rules and traditions. This kind of faith needs to be the new normal. With a loving and accepting faith that includes the morals and values of this generation, religion can become a place of peace, love, and acceptance. So whether faith means church and Bible study or meditation and nature walks, the importance of self-evaluation, inner peace, and human connection holds true throughout. If we reform our interpretation and perception of religion, we can break stigma by using it to power the change that would best benefit this generation. Thank you. I will now hand it over to Maddy Kallin.
The year was 1921. A young man by the name of Benjamin Mackay sat atop a tree on the Long Trail in Vermont. As he looked out across the stretching landscape of mountains, he dreamed of a trail that would stretch across the entirety of the Appalachian skyline, from the tallest peak in the south to the tallest peak in the north. This trail was complete in 1939. Myron Avery was the first of many to thru-hike this trail. He is dubbed the first 2,000 miler. His story is an incredible one, but today I'm going to tell you mine. My parents thru-hiked the AT after college, and along the way they met a couple hiking with their 2 young kids. This couple had an 8-year-old daughter who, when she finished, became the youngest girl to thru-hike the trail. She would remain so until August 31st of 2014, when I summited Mount Katahdin after 5 months of placing one foot in front of the other. In March of 2014, my family packed up our bags, drove to Georgia, and started walking home. Backpacking and adventure have always been a central part of my family and upbringing. It's a shared joy among all of us and has helped us to focus and support each other in our triumphs and struggles. It has shared with us the surreal, the serene, and the sublime. For me, it has taught me endless lessons on strength and perseverance. As we were hiking through the Smokies, it started snowing. Snow became sleet, and sleet became hail. All in all, it was a miserable day. I sat on the trail and cried. I was ready to give up. My shoelaces had frozen in knots. I trudged along, teary-eyed and exhausted. Everyone around me did their best to cheer me up. A fellow hiker who went by the trail named Gilligan turned to me and said, "You are stronger than your adversity." To which I replied, "What's adversity?" The trail taught me many things. It taught me how to keep putting one foot in front of the other, even when it felt like I couldn't anymore. On a warm spring day, I was walking behind a good friend of mine who was called Spider-Man when I tripped and fell. Spider-Man walked over to me and lent me a hand to help me back up. And he said, "Cartwheel, do you know why we fall?" I shook my head with a sniffle. And he said, "So we can learn how to get back up again." Now, I know that sounds cheesy and almost fake, but it's one of those moments that don't really mean anything until years later and you look back on it and you realize the strength and the knowledge that you gained from it. The trail taught me to pick myself up and dust myself off. It taught me that trilliums, craisins, and nuts make a heck of a good salad. It taught me that wild horses love salt. It taught me that emus can be pretty scary. It taught me that shared experiences lead to bonds that can surpass societal norms of friendship. I was 7 when I started the trail. Most of my fellow thru-hikers were in their 20s or older. Yet we would share our stories, and they treated me as an equal. We were forging our paths together. It didn't matter that they had lived 3 times my lifetime. My dad says that backpacking is about relationships formed in the mountains. The relationships that I formed were unique and impactful, and they shaped the way that I still look at friendships. I did have to miss multiple months of school in order to complete the trail, but the trail was my classroom. Along the way, we would memorize poems to pass the time. One of the first poems that I memorized is by Robert Frost. It begins, "Two roads diverge in a yellow wood. I'm sorry I could not travel both and be one traveler." And it finishes, "And I took the one less traveled by, and that made all the difference." It's hard to find a better analogy than this poem for the trip that my family took. Following the less traveled path has led to many discoveries of who I am and what I love. Frost's message is still a mantra in my head, inspiring me to try new things that might be challenging, to take a leap even when I don't know where I'll land. The mountains can be unforgiving. They can give you hail when all you want is sun. They can push you to the point where you're ready to give up. But then they bring you the people who will remind you that you are stronger than When you reach the top and the clouds have parted, the whole world is spread out below you, stunning and beautiful. The mountains provide a refuge, a home, a tranquil beauty that represents strength and perseverance. The earth has shaped the mountains, and the mountains have shaped me. So now I'm going to leave you with one last poem that I memorized on the trail. And I hope that one day you will find your mountains, however tall they might be, however long of a walk it takes you to get there. I encourage you to explore and to see where the road less traveled takes you. So in the words of Walt Whitman, healthy and free, I travel the open road. The long brown path before me leads wherever I choose. Henceforth, I ask not good fortune, I myself am good fortune. Henceforth, I whimper no more, complain no more, need nothing. Done with indoor complaints, libraries, querulous criticisms. Strong and content, I travel the open road. Thank you. I am now going to hand it over to Connor Parson.
During junior year, a significant focus of English class is the American author paper. While there were thousands of options I could have chosen from, I selected Kurt Vonnegut to be my American author. And in a way, Vonnegut was the inspiration for this speech. A theme that has appeared in almost every one of his books is the question of free will and predeterminism and how human actions are decided. And today, I would like to discuss the validity of both decisions. Are all actions truly free of influence, or is some other thing involved in the process? Now, Vonnegut's stories generally contain themes of predeterminism. In his story, Sirens of Titan, all of humanity's entire history was being controlled by aliens light years away. Similarly, in Breakfast of Champions, there's a godlike character who controls the actions of almost every single character. In some ways, I'm inclined to agree with Vonnegut's stories. From a scientific standpoint, viewing the brain as a series of chemical reactions and everyone else's brains as a series of chemical reactions makes it seem like every action would have to lead to each other. But that interpretation has never sat right with me. I mean, whenever I decide to do something, it sure feels like it felt free. All the books I've read, the classes I've taken, the sports I've played, even deciding to do this speech today. Seeing it all as not coming from free will, but as part of some long chain of events just feels wrong and sad. These actions felt like they were my own, so how could they come from anything other than free will? But that answer has never sat right with me, in the sense that these outcomes are both kind of incorrect. Sure, even if every action truly is predetermined, how often can you say you know what you'll do in a given situation? If you planned your day down to the second, the millisecond, you never know what inadvertently stubbing your toe or bumping into someone in the streets will do to your day. Similarly, even if every action truly is predetermined, humans have no way of knowing how the brain decides what we do. Our understanding of the brain is very advanced, but it is not advanced enough to truly have an all-encompassing view. Conversely, even if humans truly do have free will, how often do we ever exercise it in real practice? For example, given the chance to sit in the same spot you sat in every day in class, or an entirely different spot, how often do you sit in the place you sat before? In a different way, every single person is influenced by a variety of factors, even if those factors aren't some god or aliens. Your community, your school, your job, like everyone you're around will influence you in some way. Given these inherently conflicting ideas, I like to view the world and how humans make decisions as something called functional chaos. It's this idea that even if every action truly is predetermined, the world is so vast and expansive that it's impossible to say what you do in a given situation. It's just a matter of finding those chances, those moments where the choices you make are in effect free. Before I go, I would like to bring up Vonnegut one last time. In his stories, the belief in predeterminism manifests in a nihilistic sense, this idea that if all my actions were predetermined, was there a point to even caring about making them? For example, at the end of Breakfast of Champions, the main character is told that all of his actions were controlled by God. And because of that, that makes him wish he could have had free will the entire time. In that instance, he's treating all the decisions he's made, all those choices he's taken in life, as they were completely worthless. This entire philosophy to me feels wrong. As, yes, even if your actions may have some predetermined background, that does not mean your actions go without consequence. It may be today, it may be tomorrow, it may be 3,000 years from now. Every action you take could have the chance to affect someone or something in a minor way. Your actions are not fruitless because they were predetermined, but nor are they valuable because they came from free will. Every action happens in the here and now, and you are not the only person who lives in the here and now. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Amelia Rice, and today I'll be speaking about banned books and the argument against this practice. In the winter of 8th grade, in my English class, we were studying Harper Lee's To Kill a Mockingbird, a story that primarily explores human morals and the effect of racism and prejudice in a small community. Despite the almost invaluable lessons that can be learned from its content, this book, and so many more, have been banned in numerous schools and libraries. This was the first time I had ever heard about a book being banned. Initially, I found this concept a little confusing. I thought, aren't adults the ones always telling students to read? So then, why are they restricting students' access to books? As I learned more, it became apparent this issue was not this simple. Books are banned for numerous reasons, often regarding gender, sexuality, race, ethnicity, and religion. To ban books in today's world is a concept that is contentious to the inclusion and representation of all. By banning a book, not only is one silencing someone's story, but they're also silencing all who may relate to the story. It further perpetrates a lack of representation in culture and media. Next, upon further examination, it can be argued that the practice of banning books is unconstitutional. Lastly, banning literature can create gaps in a student's education. Representation matters immensely. It is imperative for young people to find characters within books that they can relate to. Currently, diverse books are in the minority. According to the Washington Post, 25% of all published books in the U.S. are banned. Over the course of the 2021-2022 school year, 1,600 books were banned from schools and libraries nationwide. When diverse books are already the minority, and then several are banned, they become a minuscule component of classrooms and libraries. By banning books, representation in culture and media further dwindles to a minute number. Diverse literature benefits minority students by having them feel more included in society and providing positive portraits for others like them. While some may believe that diverse literature only benefits minority students, this simply isn't true. Other students can read diverse literature and have a better idea of what it's like for minorities and therefore have more empathy, understanding, and kindness towards these communities. Upon further examination of U.S. law, the practice of banning books is found to be unconstitutional. The First Amendment states that Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech, or of the press, or of the right of the people peaceably to assemble, or to petition the government for redress of grievances. To summarize the First Amendment, it protects freedom of speech, religion, the press, assembly, and petition. The First Amendment clearly states that there is freedom of the press, and that anyone who wishes to can read whatever they want. The practice of banning books violates the freedom of the press. By banning books, citizens are divested of their right to receive information and ideas, a right that is protected by the First Amendment. Banning books can create several preventable gaps within a student's education that could disadvantage them later in life. Students who do not have access to diverse literature will not have a firm understanding of culture, race, worldviews, sexualities, religions, etc., and by extension, tolerance and kindness towards such. Banning books can discourage freedom of thought, something that is beyond essential for adult life. Banning books in educational settings is an oxymoron to education itself. Students can only grow as individuals by learning about other perspectives. When several educational disadvantages can be inevitable, it is unfair to students to continue a practice they've created. In closing, the practice of banning books reverses strides made towards the representation and acceptance of all, violates the First Amendment, and can create education gaps that are absolutely preventable. You all have the power to learn more and to enter this world as open-minded, intelligent, empathetic adults by reading banned books. You can learn about stories that are sometimes glossed over in history or ignored in the media. You can help amplify voices that are often silenced. I encourage you all to read banned books and challenge systems that can silence the voices of minorities. Thank you all for taking the time to listen. Now, go find a banned book to read.
Hello everybody, my name is Niko Rice. Behind my house, buried deep within the woods and hills and trees, nestled in a knoll, is an ancient burying ground. Since the bodies here were laid to rest many years ago, so many that not a soul can recall who was placed in this spot, but he's been buried in leaves and pines and pucker brush. The wild was eaten alive those who tried to claim it, it was crushed to fight against those who tried to claim the land. The Nash burial ground, the Nash, the name of the place calling to me from amongst the tall pines, the forgotten people unknown, their histories, their lives buried into the clay, mysteries underneath the briar patch. I began trying to find it. This is in June of last year when all of the greenery possible was growing throughout the land and forest. I, of course, did not factor this into my equation whatsoever. The directions of the Historical Society were vague, and a lumbering operation began in the area since then. The land was unfamiliar and alien to me. Even so, for hours on end, I stumbled aimlessly through the woods. I climbed walls of stone and granite and dragged myself through thickets of brambles. I sat defeated on glacial boulders in the woodlands, and I even heard the words, "This is private property," for the first time. But through it all, I kept the Nash in the back of my mind. Even through the winter, when the stones were buried underneath foot upon foot of snow, I would still trudge out of the woodlands in my Doc Martens for one more feeble attempt. But this month, I finally found it. It was Easter. I stood at the foot of the logging yard looking for signs of human activity. I didn't want to recreate last summer's dramatics, so, carefully, using my boots under every twig and brush pile, I let them form its guide me to the supposed spot I had hunted for. And there, on the knoll I had seen described so many times in ancient notes and books, the Nash lay. It wasn't much for the eyes. 2 unmarked, moss-covered stones, most of which had sunk into the ground. I doubt that anyone had seen these for decades. But as I reached out to touch the stones, to tell them Happy Easter, I remembered the facts of this place. The graves most likely belonged to William Nash and his wife, who came here in the early 1800s. They built their own houses, shot their own game, and schooled their own children. They were impoverished farmers who fought against the shrubs and pines with their dying day, and once now towered over them. After that, the battle was over. By the end of the labor and the strife, they drew enough money for their own families to mark their own gravestones. They were buried on their own land, as was tradition at the time, each given a stone that shone like the morning stars, and a ring of small rocks running them by. However, no matter how distant their past, no matter how far gone their field stones, they were still people. The people who fought with their own bloody, calloused hands to build something for the wilderness. Without knowing it, they fought for what we have today. And for that, just for that battle, they should be remembered, even after their graves have sunk into the earth, and that same old wild that has eaten over their land. Thank you very much.
Hello, I am AJ Shepard. Chess. Chess is a universal language. Chess transcends culture, education, and life experience entirely. This universality gives chess a certain beauty that is hard to find elsewhere. Right now, Jan Nepomniachtchi from Russia and Ding Liren from China are battling for the World Chess Championship title in Kazakhstan. The former world champion, Magnus Carlsen, is Norwegian, and Vishwanathan Anand before him is Indian. Many prisons offer chess, and even have chess tournaments where inmates play against people from other prisons across the world. Sometimes, they even play in public online tournaments, giving them a chance to interact with the outside world.
A few inmates even started playing chess in their heads when board games were banned because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Age isn't much of a factor either. Last summer, I went to my local library in Booth Bay Harbor. They have a chess club every other Wednesday, and I got absolutely annihilated by an 8-year-old named Raza. I've also beaten several people multiple times my own age, and lost to probably every age demographic out there. This is the beauty of chess. No matter who you are or where you came from, chess will always have a place for you. Recently, this beauty has captured the attention of many more players. In January of 2023, Chess.com, the largest website for online chess, had a beautiful problem. Their servers were crashing. They couldn't keep up with all the traffic. They had gained 300,000 new members in a single day. In the span of 1 month, Chess.com has nearly doubled its users. It wasn't just Chess.com. YouTubers and content creators such as Gotham Chess, Hikaru Nakamura, ChessBase India, the Botez sisters, and many others each gained millions of views in January alone. For these reasons, I feel that it is necessary and proper to establish an after-school chess club, start competitions with other schools, host public tournaments for profit and notoriety. With the chess FLB we have now, students interested in chess can only play 2 or 3 games, and they don't really have any opportunities to learn and improve. With an after-school chess club, students can study and learn chess with one another. They can play and practice with one another. We can nurture the spirit of competition and encourage a healthy hobby which has been linked to raising IQ, improving memory and pattern recognition, increasing critical thinking skills, and enhancing strategic thinking. Not only that, but it gives students another chance to bond over a common interest and form meaningful, lasting friendships. This is the beauty of chess. Thank you.